thank you, women, for being here. And to those who were here before I pushed record, thank you for listening to my stories about failing at surfing. I actually got really sick last night and am still feeling like super ready to pass the mic. And Natalia leads a breath that I like to use and think is super appropriate for this space. So instead of me leading our usual breath, I am just going to um, let Natalia take over right away and lead us in breath and just say thank you so much for doing this, Natalia. I really, really appreciate. I'm excited about it to just sit back and enjoy you.
Yeah, thank you, Amalia. I'm happy to be here. Happy all of you are here. If you can turn your video on if you're not busy doing something else, that would be lovely. I would love to see your faces. If not, that's okay too. Thank you for being here. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is dissension. And that's the breath that I'm going to lead is a breath of dissension that you can always come back to and always tap back into. So if you want to just take a moment to arrive here, close your eyes, get comfortable in whatever seated position you're in, and just start to kind of slow and deepen your breath. Let your sits bones get heavy on whatever you're sitting on. Some audible exhales if that feels good, to just kind of let go of whatever you were doing before and really land here. Really tapping into landing in this moment. Softening your buttocks, your vaginal muscles. On the next exhale, softening your heart and your back heart or your receiving heart. And now on the next inhale, I want to invite you to bring your attention to your third eye, this place right in between your eyes and your forehead. Just bringing your awareness and your focus there. And then on the next inhale, allowing your awareness to come up over the top of your head, down the back of your head, and pausing for a moment right where your head meets your neck. Taking an inhale there. And then allowing yourself on the exhale, allowing your awareness to drop down your spine, dripping slowly like honey. Until you arrive at your coccyx. And then from your coccyx, bringing your awareness forward into your womb space. If you don't have a felt sense of where that is, you can imagine the point that's about a finger length down from your belly button and about the width of 3 fingers inside of your body. Now take a really deep inhale, bringing your breath all the way down into your womb space and exhaling from there as well. And the next inhale, coming even more deeply into this space. Really allowing your whole pelvic bowl to soften, your vulva to soften, anything that's holding on to soften as you exhale. Inhaling, filling your womb with air, and exhaling completely to release all the air from this space. Inhaling, noticing any textures, any tensions, any temperature, just kind of noticing what is alive here. And exhaling, just softening into that. And just take a couple more really deep breaths here into and out of your womb space. And I'm going to ask you a question while you're still breathing into your womb space. And as you return here to our collective space, I would love for you to bring a short answer to this question into the chat. Can you describe to us in just a few key words what your current relationship with your womb feels like? And kind of allow that breathing to inform the words that you use. And slowly bring your awareness up from your womb into your heart. And then into this shared space, noticing as you come in here where your edges are, where you stop and this space begins, just feeling that edge between your individual space and this collective space that we're co-creating. And as you arrive back, go ahead and drop right into the chat just a few keywords to describe your current relationship with your womb. Positive, connected, trusting. Romantic, mysterious, infinite. I love the word romantic. That's so good. New, awareness, hopeful.
Recording in progress.
Present, ready, available. If whoever is unmuted, if you could just mute so that we don't have this echo chamber situation. Peaceful, quiet. Okay, wonderful. Welcome to those who just arrived as well. Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and dive in. It's lovely to hear your words to describe your relationship with your womb, and I welcome you to continue to drop into the chat as we're going here. I have a kitten attacking my foot down here, and I'm like a little bit distracted, and I can't really put her anywhere else, so we might have a little kitten distraction. Yeah, please drop into the chat any like questions or comments throughout our time here together. And I'm going to open up a little bit of space at the end as well, for us all to share and connect about this topic. I'm Natalia. I'm the creator of Sovereign Woman Care. That is my business as a full spectrum doula. I do work from education about fertility all the way through to birth work and postpartum work. And I don't think that really fully encompasses what I have been focusing more on, which is really like feminine maturation work. All of that has come through really deep study of female physiology, and that is really what I'm devoted to and what has informed everything I do, especially now as I focus more on my mentorship in the work of feminine maturation. And I'm here coming at you here from my homestead in Oaxaca, Mexico. I'm outside in my outdoor kitchen, and yeah, I have, there's a lot of like background noise of animals and birds and just sitting outside, the wind and everything. So always let me know if you can hear me all right. So I guess where I would like to start is just with sharing the perspective that your womb is a place to get to know yourself. Your fertility is a pathway to really get to know yourself and to deepen your understanding of what it means to be who you are and who you came here to be. I call my work with fertility embodied fertility because I do teach fertility awareness method, but I really don't focus on this like method of preventing pregnancy or achieving pregnancy. What I am really here for is the path that your fertility is. And it's not just like something to manage, this like thing that's going on in your body that like you have to deal with. It's who you are. It's shaping your entire experience of reality. And that's really like a big part of why I focus so much on hormones in the way that I talk about fertility awareness. I think that really true body literacy is really understanding how your body works, and understanding how your hormones are shaping your experience of reality. Body literacy often is spoken about in regards to just knowing like how your fertility works, how to prevent pregnancy. And to me, it's not just that, it's also understanding how your hormones are not just creating your fertility, they are literally creating the way that you experience the world. And this is an intelligent design that is your birthright to really understand and to really be able to fully descend into. I hope that in this short time that we have here today, that you can really land in a deeper understanding of your female physiology and fall in love just a little bit more with being woman. Of course, we don't have time here on one call to go into all of the intricacies of fertility awareness and how this practice works and all of the details here. But we do have time for you to be opened up to a perspective about living in relationship with your body in a new way. It is really my belief that your womb holds your highest timeline. Your womb really holds your most evolved self within her. And it is through descending down into your body and down into that blueprint that your womb holds that she can really birth you into everything that you're meant to be. So oftentimes that work starts by getting to know your fertility, either for the reason of preventing Sorry, I just had this thing jump up and claw my leg in the middle of that sentence. She's in this like super playful, super annoying phase of being a cat. So where was I? Oftentimes people are coming to this work because of the desire to maybe get off of birth control or prevent pregnancy or achieve pregnancy. Oftentimes women come to this work because of like a problem or like a symptom that they're experiencing in their womb. But really what happens every time I start to work with somebody in connection with this path of the womb is we always realize together that it's not just about that. There's like a huge unfolding that gets to happen through this space. And to your design. I think I froze for a second there. My internet gets interrupted every like few minutes. So whatever, I'm doing my best here. Your fertility is like such a massive part of your design as woman. And when you drop really down into this space and into your fertility, you understand like what it means to be woman on a whole other level. And that also invites maturation. That's how I have gotten to this point in my work of really focusing on feminine maturation, because it's like a natural evolution that happens when you focus on your fertility and really attuning to your hormones. You evolve and you grow up and you become really fully woman, because it's like it's dropping down into your design as woman. I think the first piece that I want to get into here is the hormone cycle. And I'm just going to like really briefly go over how your hormone cycle works, and some of like the energetics of the hormone cycle. The energetics of the hormone cycle are a huge part of what I teach in my one-on-one work and in all of my courses, because it's such essential knowledge as woman. And it gives you this like natural power because you understand your design. And you understand how to work with your design when you understand your hormones. So we all know by now, hopefully, we have, the phases of the cycle from menstruation, rising estrogen, ovulation, and then the luteal phase, and then back to menstruation. Oftentimes people talk about it as like the 4 phases, the 4 seasons. That's not how I teach it. I'm not going to get into it in a lot of detail right now, but I focus on the hormonal activity throughout the cycle, not this like breaking it down into 4 cute, well-packaged pieces, because it's not as accurate. And focusing too much on like the 4 phases or like the 4 seasons of the cycle, to me, is like putting too much emphasis on that rather than the understanding of what's happening hormonally. What's happening hormonally is like the reason that you have this feeling of like newness in springtime. It's estrogen. So understanding like what estrogen is, what it feels like in your body, and how to work with it, that for me is key. So just to provide this as like a baseline as we move forward, when you're menstruating, you have very low hormonal activity. That's why you, if anybody's unmuted, if you can mute because it's echoey for me. As you're menstruating, you have very low hormonal activity, and that is because, or that is why you shed your uterine lining, because hormones are what build and then maintain your uterine lining. And we're going to focus on estrogen and progesterone, with a little hint of testosterone as well. And then when you, it just echoed for me, Amalia, when there was like some key noises, but it's gone now. When you stop bleeding, you have usually like a few days of low hormonal activity still after that, and then your estrogen starts to rise. As your estrogen starts to rise, this is like what many people will call your like springtime, this feeling of newness and rebirth. Also, we just passed Easter, which is like this energetic of resurrection, which is something very innate to the female cycle as well, is this resurrection, this being reborn after death. That is innate to our female cycle. And that is what you experience after menstruation as your estrogen begins to rise. And I'm sure you have all experienced that feeling of like, wow, I'm alive again. Like I want to like do stuff again. My husband can touch me again. And it's like coming like back to life again. That's what estrogen brings forth, because estrogen is this like life-giving, stimulating hormone that is excitatory in your entire system. And then estrogen comes to a peak and you ovulate. The reason you ovulate is because of how estrogen's rising and this feedback loop between your ovaries and your brain. Estrogen triggers luteinizing hormone, which triggers ovulation. Ovulation is not a phase, really. Like a lot of people call ovulation a phase, like the ovulatory phase. But ovulation is not really a phase, it's an event. It's a quick event that happens. The phase surrounding it would be like the peak estrogen phase, where your estrogen is as high as it's going to be. But that really only lasts for like 2 or 3 days maximum, that where you're at this like peak of the estrogen rise. So that would be what people often call summer. But like I said, they're not, the 4 phases are not even, like it's not even amounts of time. The peak of estrogen is really just a couple of days. And then your estrogen falls off and your progesterone begins to rise. I love progesterone. And progesterone is like such a beautiful and complex aspect of the feminine to understand. And progesterone is really like the archetypal mother. Some people say that that high estrogen is like the mother phase, but that doesn't make sense to me, because progesterone is the hormone that makes you a mother. Progesterone comes up, and that is what maintains a pregnancy. That is what enriches the uterine lining in order for a fertilized egg, to be able to implant, and then for it to be held and maintained in that space. So progesterone is this nesting kind of like nurturing energetic of the mother. And then progesterone peaks. I usually think of the luteal phase as like 2 separate phases, because when progesterone is rising and then it peaks and then it falls, it's a very different like experience in your psyche when it falls off. The last week before you bleed, when you have PMS, or when, for a lot of people, the like worst time for PMDD, if you experience like premenstrual dysphoria, that's that last week when progesterone has fallen off and you're awaiting your bleed. And that is really this phase of like progesterone falling off is this like dark mother phase, this like really deep, triggering, rich, intense mother aspect. Part of that to me is grief, because whether you like it or not, and whether you are aware of this on like a mental level or not, your body wants to get pregnant. If you're a female of reproductive age, your body's trying to get pregnant. So there's like a biological grief that comes in during that phase. And you might not love me for saying this to you, but everything that comes up in that phase is also for you. It is absolutely in service to you and your highest good, because everything that happens through your entire cycle is in service to your evolution. If you're experiencing premenstrual depression, you probably want to like slap me when I say that, but it's true that it's for you. It's something that's coming up to come out, something that's coming up to be felt and to be released or to be moved, ultimately for you to be cleansed of before you bleed. I also think of this as as your cycle as like a miniature life cycle, because it is actually, it's the life cycle of an egg. It's, you come to this place of like rebirth and like adolescence through your estrogen rise, where you're like excited about life and you're like this super stimulated, excited teenager. And then that peaks and you come into this like peak fertility, like womanhood. And then you come into like the motherhood with the progesterone, and then the progesterone falls off and you reach like the cronehood, and you are in that moment where you're like nearing death, and you're nearing like an ego death as well. And really like working with this hormonal cycle and being like understanding what exactly is happening when allows you to really mature into womanhood. Because everything I just told you, it's like pretty complex. There's all these different aspects of your psyche that come forth at different times. And when you're not like really understanding what's happening when, you get kind of like taken on a ride every month by this. And you're like, I describe it often. It's like, you like, excuse me, I kind of have the hiccups. You are coming up on the estrogen, you're like high on life, and you want to start all the projects and do all the things. And then you come down, and like this more mature version of you with the progesterone comes in, who has to like carefully allocate her energy. That side of you comes in, and like suddenly you don't want to finish all of those things. And it almost creates this like incongruence, or this like lack of coherence, if you're just taken on the ride of your hormones rather than like really understanding them. When you really learn to be that like center point and understand what's happening hormonally, and like what you are like the days before you bleed, and like how to deal with that, how to prepare for that, how to orient your business and your life around that, that invites a new level of maturation where you're integrating and you're like the center point where all of these pieces of you are one, rather than just being like this on this like hormonal ride that you get, taken over here and taken over there every month. Does anyone have any questions? Just go ahead and drop in the chat if you have any questions or comments about that specific piece of the hormonal cycle. This is really foundational to like embodying your fertile essence, because you need to understand the journey that your fertility is taking you on. Your fertility is taking you through such a journey every single month, this entire life cycle. It's like this medicine journey that you get to go on every single month. And it's like, I've also said it before, it's like if you like took ayahuasca, but you thought that it was like black tea or something. And it's like, you're on this like medicine journey, and you can like know that you took ayahuasca and like go for it and like process it and like know how to work with it. Or you can just be like taken on this journey that's like kind of overwhelming and kind of scary. And this is very much what happens with the hormonal cycle. So once you really understand the hormonal cycle, you get to work with it for creation. You get to become more efficient as a woman, because it's like, if you're not working with your cycle, you're probably working against it. And you're probably less efficient. Like I had one client the other day that said something like, oh, I have time to like experiment with like cyclical creation for my work. And I was thinking like, you don't have time to not. It's like, if you're running a business, or you're like working a job, or you're just like showing up to life, and you're trying to show up the same every single day without orienting it around your cycle, you're being far less efficient than you could be, which is like, it's kind of like a masculine way of thinking about it, is like being less efficient, right? But it's true. It's like, if you're not working with your cycle, you're working against it. And therefore your body is kind of going to be working against you a little bit. And therefore you're going to be less efficient and have less clarity. I'm not going to go into like the nitty gritty of how to create with your cycle. But I do have like a very quick mini course on this topic that goes very deep into exactly how to do it, like what to do while you menstruate, what to do when your estrogen starts to come up, because this is a really, really key piece. Okay, I'm kind of doing like a introduction to many different things that I work with, because like I said, we can't go really deep into everything. But I hope to at least like open your perspective to a lot of different pieces here. And then you can kind of like integrate them and decide to go more deeply into whatever it is that you're like more called into or feels the most relevant for you. Emily, I will send you the links at the end here. And actually, we'll send it in an email actually tomorrow probably as well. So does everybody here have some familiarity with fertility awareness method, using that to prevent or achieve pregnancy? Do you have any familiarity with that? Just drop that in the chat. I would love to hear kind of where you're at in relationship to tuning into your biomarkers to know when you're fertile. This is different than what I'm talking about, is different than like just cycle tracking. Like sometimes cycle tracking is like you mark like when your period is and when you are thinking you're going to ovulate. What I'm talking about is using fertility awareness method, observing your cervical mucus, your cervical position, your body temperature, your LH test, all of these biomarkers. Okay, great. Okay, great. Heard of it, a little bit familiar, well-versed. So we're all over the place. So I'm just, also I get really horny. Yeah. First thing I want to say about fertility awareness is, in regards to what you said, life after birth. A lot of people say like, yeah, okay, you can identify when you're fertile, but that's the time I'm the horniest. And it's like, the reality is, if you are trying to prevent pregnancy, you are working against your physiology to an extent. And that sounds super funny, right? But it's like, if you're a female of reproductive age, your body wants you to get pregnant. That's why you're horny. You are designed to get pregnant, right? So the first piece of like understanding what it means to not suppress your hormones and to be working with your hormones is you need to recognize that everything in your body is trying to get you knocked up all the time. And there's absolutely no way around that. So this is a really key piece, because it's like, if you're not suppressing your hormones through hormonal birth control, you have to recognize that your hormones are trying to reproduce. And that is also a key piece of information, because it's like, your hormones are designed to create life. Your cycle is designed to create life. And even if you're not using that to create a baby, you actually get to consciously decide how to channel that creative energy. It's a massive creative potential, okay? It's like a potential human being every single cycle. And if you're deciding to not get pregnant, what do you want to use that for? We get to choose how to use that. And to me, that is another huge part of this idea of really embodying your fertility, is like recognizing what massive life force is coursing through you all the time and using that, embodying that fertile life force. And yeah, this other piece of like the reconciliation, the recognition that like your body wants you to be pregnant is really important as well. One of the key pieces that I teach in regards to fertility awareness that I think that nobody talks about enough is that there is a full spectrum of fertility desires. You're not just like, want to be pregnant or don't want to be pregnant. There's so much gray area, and the whole birth control paradigm has really created this like black and white idea where it's like you're on birth control, you don't want to be pregnant, or you're off birth control because you do want to be pregnant. It doesn't take into consideration all this gray area. It also doesn't take into consideration that there's many layers there. Like, you could consciously be like, no, I don't want to get pregnant, but then your heart like skips a beat and like flutters every time you like walk by baby clothes, or like one of your friends has a baby. There's this like heart longing there sometimes. Or maybe you have like a spiritual relationship with a future baby, like a spirit baby that is with you, that's kind of hanging around you. And that's also playing into this, even though consciously you're like, I don't want a baby. Maybe you have a connection with a future baby with you. And then there's your biology, which always wants to be pregnant, regardless, pretty much, unless you're like breastfeeding or have like some underlying health struggles that you're dealing with, and like vitality stuff that you're dealing with. Then maybe your body doesn't want to be pregnant, or is trying to save energy, and is therefore turning off the ability to get pregnant. That's also a reality. But when you are in vibrant health, and you're not, breastfeeding or have some other reason that your hormones are being suppressed biologically, there is almost always a desire for pregnancy. Really recognizing where you're at on every level, like conscious, emotional, spiritual, and biological are the 4 levels that I break it down into. Recognizing where you're at on every level is really essential to preventing or achieving pregnancy. Because if you're like consciously, I'm trying not to get pregnant, but like emotionally, you really are longing to get pregnant, then you're going to sabotage yourself while you're using the fertility awareness method, because you're not just taking a pill, outsourcing. Whoops, I think I froze. There, I'm back. Okay. If you're not taking a pill and outsourcing to somebody else to take care of your fertility for you, you are the only one responsible, and you can fuck it up. And if you're not like in alignment on all of those levels, you can sabotage yourself. And I see this happen all the time. Actually, one of my one-on-one clients recently got like accidental unplanned pregnancy. And she recognized after that, like, she said it was accidental, but that like actually she really wanted to get pregnant. And so she like forgot to like pay attention to her cervical mucus, and like forgot to like take the Queen Anne's lace after she had sex, because she actually really wanted to get pregnant. And there was this like miscommunication between the conscious desire and the emotional desire. So what do you do about that? A lot of us of reproductive age have a desire to be pregnant and have like, baby fever, even when it makes no sense to get pregnant. So you give space to that part of you to grieve. It's okay to be sad that it's not time to have a baby right now. You don't have to pretend that part of you that wants to have a baby doesn't exist. That's what most women do when there's an emotional desire, but like a conscious decision to not get pregnant. Most women will just kind of pretend that there's not an emotional desire, like pretend that her heart doesn't skip a beat when she sees the baby clothes, like just like push that away because it's not the time and it doesn't make sense. But that part of you will come up. There's like a quote by Carl Jung that was like, excuse me, until you make the subconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. That's really relevant here because it's like you have this subconscious desire to get pregnant that you are keeping subconscious. And then that subconscious desire does rule your life. Sometimes it's like you can barely call it subconscious, like you know it's there and you try to push it down. But this is a really complex and important thing to be thinking about and talking about when it comes to sovereign fertility management. Another wonderful piece about that, about the complexity of your fertility desires, is it really like initiates you into holding complexity. That is like a key of maturing into the full essence of the feminine, is really being able to hold complexity. We live in this world that wants to put everything into like cute boxes and like black and white boxes. But really, like, that is not physiologically the reality of womanhood. Almost nothing is black and white in physiological womanhood. So really holding and embracing all these levels of complexity shows you how to hold that complexity. Being able to hold that, like, yeah, okay, I emotionally really want a baby and I'm consciously choosing to avoid pregnancy right now because I don't have a partner or because whatever it is. Holding both of those things at once is maturation. That really allows you to become more of a grown-ass woman. You mentioned Queen Anne's lace. Can you talk more about that? Okay, I don't teach about using plants as allies in fertility outside of my full course about fertility. And the reason why is because if you use Queen Anne's lace without really, really understanding exactly how to use it and exactly why, you can cause harm to your body. Just because they're plants doesn't mean that they're innately without any risk, okay? So using you use Queen Anne's lace as an inhibitor of implantation. But in order to inhibit implantation, you have to really understand how the process of conception works. You need to understand exactly when you ovulate and exactly how many days between ovulation and implantation you have. So a lot of people just like sell Queen Anne's lace tincture and just like talk about using it as natural birth control. A lot of women, like I don't know why I did this, but I looked up natural birth control on TikTok. I was just like really curious. And some of the stuff I found was horrifying. And one of those things was like a bunch of people saying that you should just take Queen Anne's lace every day. Queen Anne's lace is also known as wild carrot seed. That you should just take it every day. That's not a good idea because Queen Anne's lace is like messing with the progesterone. It's messing with your uterine lining. So really, it's very important to be very exact and precise with how you're using plants and only to use them like as a backup plan. That like always your first line of preventing pregnancy should be avoiding the possibility of getting cum in your vagina while you're fertile. It's like the number one, the golden rule of fertility awareness is like, don't get cum in your vagina if you're fertile. And that's it. And then if you're like, you know, avoiding that and something happens, or you're just like super impulsive one day and you say, fuck it, let's just do it anyway. Like once every, 6 months, not that you're like being that impulsive every single time, then it's a time to use Queen Anne's lace. Queen Anne's lace is not or any other plant, should never be like a primary method of birth control. Again, in regards to like working with your or against your physiology, birth control is this paradigm of suppressing your physiology in order to not become pregnant because of your desires to avoid pregnancy. If you use plants the same way, you're still using birth control. You're working in that same paradigm of working against your physiology, of suppressing your physiology. So, I teach about using plants as backup, but I don't even love it because it's like sometimes people learn about plants and then use it like too much. So the highlight of what I'm saying here is that plants need to be used really carefully, really precisely, and in exactly the right way. And I do explain that in all the detail, and I have like a protocol that is very specific inside of my embodied fertility course. But I can't just like teach it without teaching the whole fertility awareness part first. So that was like a non-answer answer.
That was a great answer. That was
Okay.
perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about everything I just spoke to about like sovereign fertility and kind of the way that you manage your fertility? That the piece that I just want to highlight what I spoke to about the layers of intention. That's something that I just really want you to walk away with as like an understanding of this complexity of your fertility intentions, because I really don't think that that is spoken about enough, even by like other fertility awareness instructors. I still think that complexity is a really key piece to work with. Now another piece here that I just want to bring in that is really like essential for me in my work is that like we have been really taught to outsource for everything to do with our fertility. And I also just want to mention that like assistive reproductive technology that is really on the rise, really being normalized, and is another massive industry that is benefiting and capitalizing on female physiology and on women not tending to or understanding their female physiology. There is a massive, very, very profitable interest that mostly old white men have in us not understanding our bodies and not treating them properly. Okay. So as we just spoke about, like understanding your fertility means you don't need to contribute to this multi-billion-dollar industry of birth control. And birth control feeds the assistive reproductive technology industry as well, because it creates fertility struggles. This topic is really on the rise right now because women are getting off of birth control in droves. It is like really reaching the mainstream that birth control is fucking us up, that it's making us depressed, that it's really skewing our perception of reality, and all of this stuff is kind of reaching the mainstream thanks to social media, actually. But I don't know if you saw it recently. There was a Washington Post article that was basically saying that like all of this is misinformation. They were like saying the misinformation on TikTok and stuff like that. And it's super huge backlash. Obviously, if you look at the history of the Washington Post, they are very much in bed with the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry is probably pretty terrified because being able to capitalize on fertility is just massively profitable. It's like a problem or like a sickness that every single woman has. So being able to profit on it on the end of preventing pregnancy and on the end of achieving pregnancy, like this is, our fertility is really being capitalized upon. So holding this information and holding this embodied relationship with your fertility is extremely important right now at this moment in history. And there is, there is a lot of, I just mentioned that some of the misinformation that I've seen on TikTok about natural options. There's definitely a lot of misinformation, but the piece of like embodying your fertility makes it really different, because then it's not just information. It's this like deep relationship that you have with your own body and with your own physiology that like no one can fuck with. And it's not just like information that you're spewing, it's like something that you're living, like a pathway that you're living. And then like people can say, oh, this misinformation about our cycles or whatever. But it's like, if it's really an embodied relationship that you're living in, you become a pillar of that. Like every woman around you can feel it. Like women around me just know to like ask me about certain things. Not because I like talk about it all the time, but just because I live it. Like I live in this embodiment of my relationship with my fertility. I have the sun right in my eyes now. And this is really what we need now. We don't just need women like spewing this information that you can prevent pregnancy naturally. Like it's really important that that information reaches the mainstream, but that's not just it. Like it needs to be more than that. It needs to be women really reclaiming this as this pathway, as our womanhood. It's not just like another thing to like manage or like another like trend or something, like this getting off of birth control, whatever. It's not a trend. That's how the Washington Post tried to make it seem. Like there's this ridiculous trend of women getting off of birth control. But it's not what it is. It's like, this is our womanhood. This is our womanhood. This is what we are meant to live. This is what we came here in the female body for, was to like really understand and embody this aspect of us. It's right. It's our body. It's not a trend. It's not a trend to get off birth control. It's just like being in your body. And that is a lot of what I mean by embodiment of your fertility, and why I call it embodied fertility and not just like fertility awareness as like a method. It's not just a method. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of living. It's a way of being in relationship with your body. And exactly, they're not medical issues, but they have been treated like medical issues for a really long time because they're so easy to capitalize upon. And it's time for us to really take that back. And I really want to encourage every woman here, and just every woman in general, to become a pillar for her own community by way of just being an embodiment of this information. Not necessarily that like everybody has to teach other women about their hormones or whatever. Like not everybody needs to step into that role, but just you being in relationship with your own body in this way, you are going to be like a pillar and an example for the women around you. And chances are, like, if you're sitting in this circle and if you're kind of in this space, that you're one of the women who will go first in your community and like in the world around you. And that is absolutely beautiful. And we need that. Like we need more and more women to just reclaim this as our domain. And exactly like Amali said, it's like we've always just learned about being women from other women. Really recently, our womanhood got pathologized. Like it got turned into this thing that like we go to a doctor to manage every step of our womanhood. rather than like going to your auntie or your grandma, and rather than like being taught what it means to, you know, have a cycle and all of that from the women around you, we got like put on birth control. This is another piece, like something Amali and I have talked about in, I think, with some of our Instagram lives, is like we really miss this rite of passage into womanhood in our modern world. And because humans will always seek out rites of passage, and because they're innate to our bodies, oftentimes that rite of passage ends up being taken by the pharmaceutical industry, by the medical industrial complex, because you getting on birth control has kind of become this like initiation into womanhood as a teenager. That's kind of all I got as a teenager, was like, I felt like going on birth control was like, oh, I'm like a woman now, because I never got that initiation and I was looking for it. It's natural for us to look for that initiation. And then entering motherhood is another initiation that's also usually taken by the medical industrial complex. And definitely, like, I saw it as a rite of passage, and many, many young girls see it as a rite of passage and like want to do it just because that's the only way we know how to become a woman. And it's definitely a very fear-based response to like abnormal periods and acne and on and on and on. I mean, they'll put girls on birth control for anything these days, like really for anything, even like super normal stuff. And I think that's because they just assume that they're having sex also. Like they just assume that they're having sex and lying about it. I don't know if that's part of it, because there's also like a really, you know, yeah.
You mean that you think that parents assume that the girls are having sex and that's why they would choose to take them?
No.
You think that doctors prescribe for that reason? No, I just think they prescribe because they want to have as many people on the pill as possible. I think that's the number one.
Yeah.
Because I remember saying no, thank you, and being a grown ass woman old enough to have a child, and they were like acting like I was crazy, and then they gave me the whole spiel about how it prevented cervical cancer, the fewer periods that I got. Um, and I was like, I know that you are drinking the Kool-Aid. I understand that. But I am not. And I had to really stand up for myself in so many situations at an OB, because I didn't want I didn't want a kid. They asked me that, it's like they're setting you up. Do you,
Yeah.
do you want to be pregnant? Are you on the pill? Why the fuck not? That's so irresponsible. And you know, because we're taught that it's irresponsible to not be on the pill if we don't want to have a child. And so,
Mhm.
and I think the rites of passage thing is so important because it's each rite of passage colors the next rite of passage. So if you think womanhood is about laying on your back in a fluorescently lit room while a stranger puts their hands in you, it will then inform how you might be willing to orient to someone in sex or in birth, or, because that's how we're coding ourselves and how we're coding our children.
Mhm.
So again, also it's not the anti-information and the it's not that. So we don't learn like, okay, now when it's time to have sex or when I'm having a problem with my lady parts, who do I go to? The doctor, you know,
Mhm.
or pornography. I mean, like, so but it definitely, it's like giving your 14-year-old, putting your 14-year-old on the pill has been sold to us as responsible and like progressive parenting and like being super woke and realistic and whatever. And and I think that it really it's like robs of us this beautiful opportunity to like, how do you want to bring your baby girl into womanhood? Like, how does that look for you? How do you imagine it would be if you could do it all over again for yourself or for the women, for little girls that like it's and then because it's going to set them up for those things. It's going to affect how they birth and how they welcome a man or woman, whatever, a sexual partner into their life. It colors so much. And because we didn't get that, I'm pretty sure no one got like a ceremonial, like oils rubbed on their hands and flowers in their hair, kind of like menarche. But so I'm assuming nobody did. So if I'm wrong, God bless you and please speak up and tell me about it. But because we as a collective did not receive that and have not, I'm bringing it back, Julie. That's a lot of what I do is rites of passage work, and we like quantum meditate into our rites of passage, and we rewrite that shit, and we then create a rite of passage for ourselves that we can live now, so that we can just say, okay, instead of being upset about what we didn't have, like let's fucking make it and make it for our children, which is what you're doing. It's what we're all doing sitting here. Even if you're not going to teach, because you're doing it for yourself, you're inherently doing it for the people around you, because you will be the auntie, or the mama, who knows. So anyway, super sorry, windy rabbit hole there, but I just was super inspired. I've been inspired by every word, but really felt like I wanted to jump in on that one.
Yeah. I just want to speak here also to that, like, I think that, and I was going to say this before you said that, Michelle, but this is also relevant to what you just said. Like, a lot of us now are thinking about new ways for our children, like going forward. Like, we know that what we were given as young women wasn't what we needed, really, and that there's another way, but we're the ones that are kind of paving that way forward. And I've done sessions with other women who were mothers who already had like an older daughter, and the older daughter was like, where like the mother like didn't know how to do this with her older daughter. And it's not that it's like, oh, it's too late or something, but it is that it's like, if you just start there, it's like she hasn't been seeing you, and she hasn't been seeing you embody it the whole time, like from the time she was 2. Like, it starts when she's a toddler. And because we weren't given the rite of passage, we're just kind of like figuring out as we go, and we're like, oh, I'm gonna do better for my daughter. But then it's hard because it's like, we also didn't go through the rite of passage, so we're going through womanhood the way that we were conditioned to. And then, like, 12 years after having a baby, having a baby girl, we're like, oh, I need to do this differently. And then it's like, well, do you just like suddenly like decide you're going to create something different? It's like, you have to be like living it the whole time. And then again, like you all are saying in the comments, it's also the overculture. It's like, if she lives with her mom who is super embodied in it, and is like really connected to her body and her cycle, and uses fertility awareness method and all of that, but her friends, like if she goes to public school and her friends are like super indoctrinated into the pharmaceutical industry already, she's probably going to think that it's like cool to go on birth control. So this is kind of like a complex thing once we're talking about our daughters and like the new paradigm moving forward. But obviously, like, it starts with you right now. Like, even if you don't have children yet, or you have children and they're older, like, it's okay for our older children to see like their mom learning something new, and maybe you can like learn it together, even if you're not like already really really embodied in relationship with your own fertility. Like, maybe you get to learn it together. Maybe you can recognize that, like, oh, I didn't like get this as a little girl, but I want to make up for it now. And maybe you can do it like with your girl that's already older. Let me just check up on the message here. And yeah, that's another piece, Julian, that I talk about with fertility awareness. This like setting limits with your own body. It's like this is another piece that I wasn't sure. It's like a whole other rabbit hole, but I'm just going to bring it up really quickly as something to think about. How birth control kind of also creates like a wanton free culture with sexuality, because it is in like to have to consider the possibility of pregnancy in its full spectrum kind of makes you like really aware of like how intimate sexuality is, because it's like this can result in a baby. Like you really like recognize that. And when you're on birth control and you just kind of like don't have to think about that, you also, I don't know if this is what you were meaning, Julian, as far as like setting limits with your own body, but this is something that I've worked through with, I work with women who are getting off of birth control. And something that I've worked with a lot of women who are getting off of birth control is like they were not able to say no as easily, and were just a little bit more like slept with people that afterward they were like, I would have never done that, because of this like the culture that birth control creates around sex also, because there is like a culture that it creates, not to mention the biological effect it has on who you're attracted to, because also it like alters who your pheromones attract you to and how you perceive other people's pheromones. So there's that also. But I also think that there's a big piece of this, like the way one of my clients recently said it was like she didn't like respect her body because of the way she was just like turning off her fertility. I love that your son doesn't date girls on birth control. Is that like, I'm curious, is that something that you told him, or is it just something that naturally happened? I'm really curious, Michelle.
It was something that he found in his research.
Wow,
Yes.
cool. How old is he?
He's 17.
That's awesome.
He has many conversations with me around like the women he knows in high school age girls, and just their issues, and how he knows a lot more than they do, and it's what it is. I don't know. It's surprising. It's interesting. It's sad a little bit.
Because of you, Michelle. He knows a lot because of you, babe. He knows a lot.
Well, yeah.
He's curious because you've led him to the question. So
yeah,
good
he's
job.
definitely a unique boy.
Yeah, that's really great. And as I said, it's like coming into the mainstream to like question these things. But the problem is like it's coming into the mainstream, but it's not coming into the mainstream enough that like body literacy and fertility awareness method actually works. And like even though getting off of birth control might be like a trending topic, like really taking your sexuality seriously and like really carefully choosing sexual partners and really having these conversations with your sexual partners and practicing fertility awareness, all of the full spectrum that comes with managing your fertility off of birth control is not trending yet. So to me, that's like a little bit of a gap. It's like, okay, we're knowing that birth control is not a very good way, but then all we hear from like gynecologists is that like fertility awareness method doesn't work. But I think that's because we're not talking about it in a really, really like full spectrum way, because like fertility awareness does have a lot of complexity to it. Like I talked about all these layers of desire about your fertility and like wanting to be pregnant, not wanting to be pregnant, holding that at the same time. Another piece of that is like, I know some moms of older girls that practice fertility awareness method themselves, but like don't really believe that their daughters can hold that responsibility. And that's like another thing to consider as well, is like, how are we empowering our daughters to really be able to hold that complexity as well? Of course, like this is going to be kind of a messy transition as we move out of birth control and into the new paradigm. The transition is definitely going to be messy, like Amalia said. Yeah. Okay. I would love to just open up this space for questions or like shares. trying to keep your question like pretty short and concise if you can, and I'll try to keep the answer concise as well, if you have any questions. And maybe just do raise your hand, because we're kind of quite a few people here, so it's better to do it that way. Whoever wants to go first with a question, just raise your hand in the reactions, or if you want to share as well, it doesn't have to be a question. Anybody? Okay.
Opening up for, oh, well, Julie has a question, so we'll just go with it.
Oh, it's not a question, actually. I just wanted to like thank you. And I was really like, I literally just started menstruating like 2 hours ago. And and really feeling that grief around holding the space of consciously and subconsciously wanting to be pregnant and not having the, you know, situation in order for that to happen. So like, I don't know, I was just really feeling, I almost actually canceled this because I was like, I'm, you know, man, like really feeling that sadness, but I was really appreciative of the language that you gave for that, and just definitely felt empowered to hold both of those things at the same time. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a key piece that I really don't think is spoken about enough, is that like you can be really, really not in the right situation or the right time and like know that it's not time to get pregnant and still be really, really sad about it. And like, that's really okay. And it doesn't even always, it's not even always necessarily a like emotional sadness. There's also biological grief. Like your uterus is like actually sad also. Your uterus like tries and tries to get pregnant, and then when it doesn't happen, there is also a level of like biological grief, which is a lot of the time when you have this grumpy underlying discomfort happening like the day before you bleed and while you're bleeding. I attribute it to that a lot of the time, because your uterus is like, I keep trying and it's not happening. And it's like really, really truthfully, your body needs to grieve as well. Yeah, thank you for your share, Julie. Amanda?
Hi, thank you so much for all of it. I could comment on so many different things. I can remember when I first came into the kind of viewing my cycle through the seasons, and that was like, it gave me so much permission, because there had been such a battle with like my cycle, especially that week before I would start to bleed. There was just this fight against me, you know? And so when I was introduced to the seasons, there was all of a sudden this conversation and permission. And I was like, oh, okay, I can stop fighting. I'm just going to look at it through this lens because it really resonates. And since then, I mean, that was many years ago that I came into that. But it really allowed me to start like kind of becoming an ally with my cycle and my bodies and its rhythms, and being curious about it just because of that. And then since then, it's been, you know, even what you said today, like it's been more kind of medicine to all of that, right? Like at this point, I can hold the complexities, and it resonated everything you said today about the cycle and its rhythms. But like, I think that fight was there for so long because that permission isn't there. I think it's shifting in our world, but it wasn't there. It was kind of there with my mom. I mean, she was great early on with like before I started menstruating, and in the sense that she's like, oh, we're gonna celebrate it. I'm gonna get you a red cake and we're gonna get red plates and invite all your friends. I'm like, oh, like overboard, you know? So she was a little too much, and like there was even like an anxiety in that, you know, that I could feel that just freaked me the fuck out. So it still was like awkward, but and then later on, yeah, too. I mean, I was only on birth control from 18 to 21, but that was a result of her own fear because she learned that I started having sex, instead of like a conversation and let's work through this and, all the things that really I'm hearing here today. And that was just as a result of just whatever she was indoctrinated with. So, it's quite beautiful to be where I'm at now. There's been such a reparenting of all that, and to be a part of this circle of women who engage in these conversations. But it's been so helpful to listen to you. And I can hold the complexities, that show up today, which is really cool to like, I am very in touch with all the different complex feelings, even if they're like polar opposites of one another. So I liked hearing you talk about that. And I'm a therapist and I have a private practice, and I work with a lot of like 15-year-olds, and so I am hearing them come in and talk about their experiences, right? And then I have one 10-year-old, and she doesn't have a mother. Her mother died like 4 years ago, and she's 11 now, but one of the first couple of sessions with me, she's like, I need someone to talk about my period, like, and the fear on the sweet angel's face, and so I've been able to like hold her hand through that and do it so differently than like what went down with my mom, and really step into that with her. So that's been really beautiful. I don't know where it's going to go with having my own children or not. Again, it's very complex. I'm in touch with that. I'm working through that. I'm open to seeing where it goes. But in the meantime, it's fun to really show up for young women in the way that I am, so, and to be a part of this. So thank you so much for everything tonight. I'm just going to totally marinate on it over the next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your share. And it really touches me that you are a therapist working with young women as well, because a therapist saved my life when I was 19. I was in like a really, really deep pit of depression after being put on the Nuva ring, the like hormonal ring. And I'm so happy that you're here in this conversation, because this woman said to me, okay, are you on birth control? And I was like, yeah, I just went on this Nuva ring. And she's like, take it out now, like, and you will feel better. And I was like, what, really? Like, what am I going to do? She's like, use condoms, you'll be fine, but take that Nuva ring out and you will feel better. And she like literally saved my life. Like everything, like I was alive again after that, just because I took out the Nuva ring. And I had been on hormonal birth control for several years before that and had just been kind of like a zombie. But then this specific birth control just like really destroyed my mental health. And so I just really like for women who work with young women to understand the effects that hormones have on a developing brain. Like, this is the most common cause, the most commonly reported side effect of birth control, particularly hormonal IUDs, like implants, NuvaRing IUDs and stuff, is mental health problems, because you can't just suppress these hormones of a developing young woman in her brain and expect there to be no effect. And a lot of the time there's like really severe mental health effects. So it's really important for women who work with mental health or for everyone who works with mental health, specifically of teenagers, to like understand what an effect birth control can have. So I'm like really happy just to hear that you're having those conversations with your clients, and that you're just in that world. I think it's a really important perspective to have. And thank you for the work that you do. Okay. Anybody else? Emily, in response to your comment, I'm going to send tomorrow in the email the link to my Embodied Fertility course and my Deep Feminine Creation course, which is like the course specifically about really exactly how to use your creative energy in a constructive way to vision and then channel your estrogen energetics and actualize your dreams with using your cycle. Okay, does anybody else have a question or want to share anything? Amalia? Are you unmuted?
I'm sometimes I hit that by mistake because anyway, I was thinking about what you guys were just talking about as far as teenagers and the mental health component of this, and was thinking back to our last circle, which was seemingly completely unrelated, which was quantum health and our whole like relationship with sunlight and blue light and the screen. And I think those are two of, in my mind, three main components of like teenagers. The biggest reason why teenagers suffer so much, why there's so much suicide, and I have young women in my life who have attempted suicide many times, who have just like agoraphobia, anxiety, depression, and um I think it boils down to the fact that they have had a screen in their face their whole life, way more so, and that when they're in teenagers, they're empowered to do so late at night because like they're teenagers, like I can't control them, so they're gonna look at their screen till 3 a.m. because they're teenagers, but like, and they're teenagers, so you have to put them on birth control, you know. And so this blue light, this birth control, and then just the separation of mommy baby that is conditioned so young, you know, that we don't like orient to our family like they're trustworthy because we've been raised by someone else. And these are the three components that I keep going back to as far as you know, the suffering of this cohort, this huge cohort of our society, because it really, you know, having these, you know, my nieces that have all suffered in this way has really like driven me to look at why. And, you know, at first I related it so much to my personal experience, of course, because that's what we do. And so there is some overlap, but I feel like there's a spike for these reasons. That's what I've seen, you know, that's my personal analysis of it, obviously. But this being one of those very main components, because even without birth control, just it's the initiation into disassociation from your body that happens. Like, you know, and we think of it as like the beauty standards that are so fucked up and all of that. But if you have all that in your brain, but your whole life you've been watching your mother orient to their body this way, feeling confident about their decisions because of that, not hating themselves and their bodies, and then, you know, when it's time for you to bleed, having, you know, this talk where, you know, we trust our body, these complexities, these responsibilities, all of that. It just helps so much to make decisions that are based on caring for yourself. And so it's just mirroring what you have said, but that's including being able to, like, as a mother and as a teenager, be able to create a boundary of like, no, now it's time to, you know, the screens are out of your room, or whatever it is that needs to happen, you know. Just I need to talk to you about sex, like that. All these things happen because we are established, like we as mothers or aunties or community like leaders and holders are making these decisions for ourselves. And, you know, if we have enough of those people making those decisions for ourselves, then it's much easier to steward these kids that are suffering so tremendously. Like, we really do have to take responsibility for the fact that as a collective, it's because of us, right? Even if we're not like the man, as long as we're handshaking on that mainstream like mindset and not doing the work to do, you know, to take responsibility and love ourselves and take care of ourselves and heal ourselves, then we can't really ask our kids to be able to do that.
Yeah, and like you said, a girl who has seen her mother her entire life in this kind of deep embodied relationship with her own womb and fertility is going to be really resistant and like resilient in the face of these external programs about, you know, all her friends going on birth control, all her friends, you know, doing things like sexually that they didn't really want to do, and like all of this like distortion that comes up in the collective, because you can't control everything. But a child will be much more resilient when she meets with all of those things if she has had a good example at home and has like a trusting relationship with her mother. One of the obvious like main tools of, you know, the program, all of these things is the separation of the child from the family, because a child who is like really well educated at home and like in really close relationship with their parents is super resistant to like, you know, the beauty standards, all of that, all of this programming. So yeah, it starts at home with how we are embodying our own relationship with our own body, actually, and the example that we're setting. Does anybody else want to share, or is this like the end of our time, Amalia?
I mean, it is. If you had anything else that you knew that you wanted to share, I'm sure, you know, whoever wants to stay can stay and whoever has to go will go. I didn't know, do you feel complete or did you have something else that?
I'm complete. I just want to say also that I made a discount code specifically for this circle for my kind of flagship course, Embodied Fertility, which really covers in depth everything that we have spoken about today. It's about an 8-week course. You can do it at your own pace, but I suggest taking about 8 weeks to really like steep in the information that's there. And I made a 20% discount code for you all, which makes the course about $550. It's normally $688. Amalia's in the course. We have one monthly follow-up call, like a circle where we all come together and integrate and talk about the information once a month, kind of indefinitely. And our next call is April 9th. So if you join in the next couple of days with your discount code, then you'll get in just in time for our next live call, which is on April 9th. I'm just sending you the code, the link here, and the code is circle in all caps. And you
Include that in the email.
yeah, I'm gonna send all of that information in the links in an email. That code only works for the pay in full option. But if somebody wants to do the payment plan, I will get you a payment plan with a discount also. And it's a self-study course with a live call and a live Telegram group portion of it. But yeah, thank you all for being here. Thank you for your sharing and your feedback, and I'm really happy to sit in this circle with you all. It's been really lovely. And I do actually have to hop off as well. So
Okay, well, Natalia, if you have to hop off, I have like a minute that I just want to welcome our next guest in. So if you have to go, I'll say goodbye and thank you.
okay, thank you all, and I hope to see you inside of the Embodied Fertility container. Bye.
You'll have a few takers. Thank you guys so much for sticking with. I love Natalia. She's so awesome. She's brilliant. And another brilliant woman that we are bringing into the circle next month is Julie. Julie, wave. That's Julie. Julie is a therapist as well and was the guide for my psilocybin journey a couple weeks ago. And she has agreed to come on the circle next month to discuss psilocybin therapy in like a clinical setting. And I'm not meaning like a clinical setting because I did it at her house. So I don't mean a clinical setting. I mean in a clinical approach, I guess. But it wasn't that clinical, which is why I liked it. But also that makes people feel more safe sometimes. And it feels like a little bit farther away. Accessibility feels farther away for people who think that they need to do it on their own or in a ceremony maybe where they don't resonate with that kind of ceremony. And even if you do, and even if you've done all of that, it was a different experience to do it this way, and I really loved it. So I thought it was really generous of Julie to be willing to do this circle with us. Julie, do you want to say anything?
No, I think you said it well. Thanks. Just that, you know, my orientation towards like the clinical setting, but also like very like feeling returned to more of earth medicine And that to me is what psilocybin is the mushroom is more of spirit medicine. And so I think you're right, like being able to say, I'm a therapist and been a trauma therapist and all those things create some level of safety for some people. But once you're in that experience, like you led your experience, right? And I just really got to hold space for it and like mirror back the wisdom that was coming to you. So I look forward to diving into that and answering any questions about that process for people. Mhm. Oh, you're muted, Amalia.
Thank you, Julie. And thank you, women. This is my OG crew here. Thank you so much. So yeah, I mean, you guys know if you have any like questions or desires for this space, just holler at me. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Adios.
Thank you. Good night.
Love you guys.
Thanks, darling.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that was so lovely.